What if one terrible moment could change an entire family forever? What if an 8-year-old child witnessed something no child should ever have to see, and then had to carry that memory everywhere she went? That is the deeply disturbing and emotional question at the heart of Josephine, a 2026 American crime thriller drama, written, directed, and produced by Beth de Araújo. And honestly, this is not the kind of movie you simply watch and forget. Josephine is the kind of film that gets under your skin, breaks your heart, and forces you to think long after the credits begin to roll. The movie stars Mason Reeves as Josephine, alongside Channing Tatum as Damien and Gemma Chan as Claire. And if the performances and emotional impact of this film are to go by anything, Josephine could become one of the most talked-about dramas of 2026. The story begins in San Francisco's beautiful Golden Gate Park. 8-year-old Josephine is out for an early morning run with her father, Damien. It's supposed to be an ordinary morning between a father and his daughter, but everything changes when Josephine briefly becomes separated from her father and witnesses a horrific act of sexual violence. Her father soon finds her, the police become involved, and the perpetrator is arrested. But that is only the beginning of the story, because Josephine isn't really about the crime itself. It's about what happens afterward. It's about the psychological damage. It's about fear. It's about helplessness. And most importantly, it's about a family desperately trying to save a child from a memory that refuses to disappear. Josephine is far too young to fully understand what she witnessed. She doesn't have the emotional vocabulary to explain what is happening inside her mind. Instead, her trauma begins appearing through her behavior. She becomes angry. She becomes frightened. She struggles at school. She becomes increasingly aggressive. And perhaps most painfully, she begins to see the world differently. The people she once trusted don't feel completely safe anymore. Even her own father begins to feel distant. And this is where the film becomes incredibly powerful. Because Josephine's parents, Damien and Claire, genuinely want to help their daughter, but they don't know how. Claire believes professional psychological help may be the answer. She wants Josephine to receive therapy and slowly work through what happened. Damien takes a completely different approach. He wants his daughter to become stronger. He believes self-defense will give her confidence and help her feel less powerless. Neither parent is necessarily acting out of cruelty. They're acting out of love. But sometimes, love isn't enough. And that becomes one of the most painful ideas in the film. The parents keep trying to protect their daughter, but their different approaches create even more tension inside the family. Claire is worried about Josephine's emotional state. Damien is angry at the world and wants his daughter to be prepared for it. And between them stands a little girl who doesn't understand why her life suddenly feels so different. Their arguments, misunderstandings, and emotional breakdowns make the family dynamic feel painfully real. You may even find yourself getting frustrated with the parents. You may think, why don't they just talk to her? Or why would they do that? But that's exactly what makes the film so effective. From the outside, it's easy to believe we know the right answer. But when your own child has experienced something unimaginable, there is no instruction manual. There is no perfect parenting strategy. There is only fear, guilt, anger, helplessness, and the desperate desire to make everything normal again. And then there's the courtroom. As the legal case approaches, Josephine has to confront the possibility of facing the past again. The question of whether she should testify becomes another enormous emotional burden. The movie uses this storyline to explore the flaws and limitations of the justice system while showing how frightening the legal process can be for victims and witnesses. But one of the most fascinating creative choices in the film is the way Josephine's trauma is visualized. The perpetrator becomes almost like a ghost in her mind. He isn't simply a person from a terrible memory anymore. He becomes a symbol of fear, a presence that follows Josephine, a shadow that seems to appear wherever she goes. Sometimes the movie feels less like a conventional crime drama and more like psychological horror, and that is where Beth de Araújo's direction really stands out. The cinematography doesn't simply show us what happened, it tries to put us inside Josephine's perspective. The film is extremely careful in how it presents the traumatic event, avoiding unnecessary exploitation while making the audience understand how terrifying the experience is for a child. That restraint makes the movie even more powerful. And then we have the performances. Mason Reeves as Josephine is the emotional center of the entire film. This is an extraordinarily demanding role because so much of the character's pain has to be communicated through expressions, silence, body language, and behavior rather than long speeches. And Reeves reportedly delivers a deeply affecting performance. Then there's Channing Tatum. We've seen him in action movies, comedies, and big Hollywood productions, but Josephine gives him the opportunity to explore a much darker and more emotionally complicated character. Damien isn't simply an angry father, he's a man struggling with his own history, his own fears, and his own inability to protect his child from something that has already happened. And Gemma Chan as Claire brings another layer of emotional depth. Her character is constantly trying to hold everything together while watching her daughter struggle in front of her. Together, Tatum and Chan create a believable picture of two parents who love each other and their child, yet are slowly being crushed under the weight of an unimaginable situation. And perhaps the most heartbreaking element of the movie is that there isn't a simple villain versus hero solution. Catching the perpetrator doesn't magically heal Josephine. A court case doesn't erase the memory. Therapy doesn't instantly fix everything. Self-defense doesn't remove fear. And parents can't simply tell their child to move on. The film understands something very important about trauma. The event may last only moments, but its consequences can last for years. That's what makes Josephine so emotionally devastating. It doesn't focus only on the crime, it focuses on the people left behind. It asks what happens to a family when something happens that nobody knows how to repair. And perhaps the story is also deeply personal for writer and director Beth de Araújo, who drew inspiration from an event from her own childhood. That personal connection gives the movie an additional emotional weight. There is a sense throughout the film that this isn't simply a thriller designed to shock audiences. It's an attempt to understand fear, childhood trauma, helplessness, family relationships, and the complicated process of healing. And that is why Josephine could be one of the most emotionally challenging movies of 2026. This isn't an easy watch. It is dark, it's uncomfortable, it's heartbreaking, but it is also deeply human. If you're looking for a light-hearted movie, this probably isn't it. But if you appreciate serious psychological dramas that leave you thinking about their characters long after the movie ends, Josephine could be something very special. With its powerful performances, haunting atmosphere, emotionally heavy storytelling, and fearless exploration of trauma, this film has all the ingredients of a movie that could stay with audiences for a very long time. And if the early praise surrounding the film is any indication, Josephine may become one of those movies people continue talking about throughout the year. So overall, Josephine looks like a devastating, thought-provoking, and incredibly brave piece of filmmaking. It's not a movie that promises easy answers. Instead, it asks difficult questions. How do you help a child recover from something unimaginable? How does a family survive when everyone is hurting differently? And can justice ever truly repair the damage caused by one terrible moment? Those are questions that Josephine leaves hanging in the air. And sometimes the most powerful movies are the ones that don't give you an easy answer. Josephine is scheduled to release on November 20th, 2026, with a reported runtime of around 121 minutes. So if emotional crime dramas, psychological thrillers, and powerful character-driven stories are your kind of cinema, this is definitely a movie to keep on your radar. And if you're planning to watch Josephine, let me know in the comments. Do you think a child can truly overcome a traumatic experience with the right support, or does such an experience permanently change them? Don't forget to like this video, share it with other movie lovers, and subscribe to CheezeDrama for more upcoming movie updates, reviews, explanations, trailers, and Hollywood and international cinema news. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.